It's conversational, yeah.
Oh, am I out of frame?
Hi, good to have you join here, and good to also know that you're seated across your cameras and of course watching us at this moment. It's another edition of the Leadership Dialogue podcast. I am Chikodinaka Didi. Now, from our last series of Tailing till now, we have been talking about the leadership hub, justice, and economic advancement organization. Well, like you do know, and like I've told you prior to this time, that in September, this organization will turn one. Now, there are significant things about this organization, unique things, their unique strengths, and things they have, put together to ensure that Nigeria becomes a better country. Like we did tell you in the last episode, LJE Nigeria is more about um, diplomatic moves, striving for judicial reformation and using the strength and its power to ensure that people seek and get justice as when you considering the terrain of the country. And of course, when you talk about leadership, this organization has also advanced in different advocacies to ensure that leadership becomes an integral part of democracy, in strengthening democracy in Nigeria, not to talk of the economic advancement aspect of the organization. There are so many things this organization is putting together to ensure that as a country, we move in one accord and we see that or celebrate what's Nigeria, so to speak, becomes a nearest future. But for this episode, like we started in the other time, in the last episode, I did say to you that we shall take it segment by segment. But this time around, we will be focused on the judiciary. Now, the judicial arm of the Leadership Hub, Justice and Economic Advancement Organization. Well, there is so much this organization has done or is doing in terms of judicial reform and advancing justice in the country. Now, from Asaba to Niger to Kogi states to several other parts of the country, reaching out across the 36 states and the FCT, the LJE Nigeria has been poised in ensuring that their song is sung across board, and of course people feel the impact of what they are bringing to the table. Well, so many people, like we do know, justice is one of appears to be some difficult thing to approach, and not a few persons seem to know what their judicial right is vis-a-vis conditions of people in the country. I have in the studio today the president of the LJE Nigeria. He is the lead person in this organization, a legal practitioner, a political analyst, and someone who has Nigeria in his heart, someone who is seeking for a better Nigeria. He is, should I call him a barrister? Yeah, he's a barrister Samuel Meme. Well, I was thinking whether to call you um, Samuel Meme Esquire or barrister Samuel Meme. I don't know which one is more professional in the legal.
Whichever one. My name is Samuel Membe.
Absolutely good to have you join us right now.
Thank you very much.
LJE is a great institution. It is a unique outfit, and something coming up at a time when Nigerians seem to be losing hope. Now, I say that the LJE has been doing a lot in different aspects of the social, political, and economic strides of the country. But when we talk about judiciary in Nigeria, for not a few persons, is in a state of comatose, a decaying state, a dilapidating state. And it just feels as though someone is coming from the corner to say, hey, Nigerians, there is still hope at the end of the tunnel.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Thank you, viewers. When we talk about the justice of this country, Justice judiciary is a very important arm of the government.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we're not getting it right. And like it said, justice delayed is justice denied. For us in LJE, we are more concerned about assisting those who cannot afford the cost of justice. Um, we open our doors, we open our channels. Here in this organization, we have lawyers who are there to attend to the needs of ordinary citizens. Besides that, we are also pushing for judicial reforms. And we understand that there is so much that needs to be done within the judicial system of Nigeria. But what baffles me more is, uh, unfortunately, many key players in the judicial sectors have come to identify these critical issues, but no one seems to be addressing this issue. And taking it from all angles, whatever happened in this country most time had been usually been tested in the judicial and the justice system of the country. And until we begin to get the justice system right in this country, it will be really difficult for us to move forward as a nation.
Now, let's look at it intricately. In Nigeria as of today, there's been this barrage of hope. You know, some people bash the judiciary. Some people say the major cause of corruption in the country is the judiciary. Some say the reason Nigeria's, outlook in the international scene has been seen as tainted is because the judiciary has failed to uphold its own arm
Yeah.
of leadership in the country. What are your takes on this?
Yeah, that is true. The people who we also hold such opinion because even as a lawyer, sometimes you tend to be uh, somehow you're not so proud to say you belongs to that category of the judicial system of the country because the judiciary indeed is it is an arm of government that has a responsibility to correct the ills in the system. But we have allowed so many things to happen over time. We've allowed the political space, the politicians to hijack the judicial system. But what about the civil matters? Who then hijack the civil matters? But don't forget that every society breeds the kind of leaders they want. And the judiciaries, the judicial officers, which is the judges and the staffs of the judicial officers, of course, we know what happened in courts when you go to court, you want to file matters and you want your matters. Some of those things require that you need to, sometimes you need to part one or two things. And the major angle is the delay in justice, the bureaucracies surrounding justice delivery. And this is a critical issue that needs urgent reform in our system. If you want to know a country that is serious, go to their judicial system. When you go to their judicial system, find out how justice delivery is, how priority they place their justice delivery. But in this country, we are really lacking in this area. And that is why many people who have little matters to test, or maybe they intend to go to court or test the waters, some other time they feel like, oh, what is my fate if I decide to go to court? So, but beyond that, as an organization, we are rendering services to Nigerians, and we are at the same time championing the cause of judicial reform in this country.
I see you run a lot of pro bono cases. Now, considering how expensive um, seeking justice in Nigeria is, so to speak, how are you able to marry the economic woes of the country vis-a-vis pro bono cases? It has never been overwhelming to you as an organization, or do you have funds or funders?
Interestingly, we don't even have funders. That is it. But like I said, we just have to keep doing what we have to do.
Including pro bono cases?
Including pro bono cases. We have a couple of cases going on. We have a murder case. We have we have so many cases in court. Some other cases, the ones that require violations, particularly the ones being committed by the law enforcement agencies in the course of trying to enforce their laws. Some of them overstep their boundaries. And this has to result to abuse of power, cases of corruption, and the rest of them. But the major challenge, indeed, just like you've mentioned, is funding. But we are not seeing that as a challenge for us as an organization because we have dedicated team, we have lawyers who have volunteered themselves to make themselves available. We have the in-house system, we have in-house lawyers. Of course, myself and my team, we are doing everything possible to see how we can assist the cause of justice in Nigeria. Irrespective of the cost, we have to push and we must ensure that the right things are done.
Now, in the last 1 year, how many pro bono cases has your organization delivered?
In the last 1 year, we've had five. Of course, we started full operation in this year of 2025. We have pending matters. As a legal practitioner, we also have other matters that are paid services. But for the pro bono cases, we have executed 5 pro bono cases, and we still have some other ones in court. Some of them are being resolved outside the court.
Now, how difficult is it seeking justice for those tagged as the have-nots in the society? How are you able to relate with them? How are you able to push on their cases? How are you able to, get justice for them in a community or a society bedeviled by the elites?
Sometimes when it comes to the issue of seeking for justice, it depends on the other party. If you have a very powerful person there on the other side, you have to work harder. If you have somebody who is a top political, someone who has said, I will deal with you, for instance, and sometimes they just put a call across to the police, and before you know it, you're picked and you are charged to court. Sometimes they just put you in cell or remind the person. And if you don't have what it takes to get a lawyer, it becomes a big issue. So when we find ourselves in that situation, we tend to find out the root cause of the issue and we intervene. We have seen cases of land disputes, intimidation, harassment, the rest of them. So, but when some of these guys find out that, LJE is involved, they tend to shift ground or want to negotiate and see how they can let go. But beyond that, if you find out a situation where maybe average people trying to get themselves sorted out and it results to this issue of abuse, it's not so difficult. But where it is so difficult is when the state is inflicting such hardship on an innocent citizen. So you must work hard to ensure that you get through the system because most time they tend to use the security apparatus to inflict injustice on these Nigerians, citizens.
Quite significant. Not a few viewers would want to know if the LJE runs a justice charity organization.
Quite a number of we currently have a program we're running at the correctional centers, Kuje Correctional Center. We also have the one in Nasarawa and the rest of them. So for those people who are in the correctional center, we must take certain trainings to them. We have barbing, we have ICT, we have hairdressing, we have
More like empowerment
more like an
programs.
empowerment program. These are the ones that have already been convicted.
Has the organization pushed for for release of some of these inmates? Have you tried to probe some of the cases that led to the imprisonment of some of the inmates in prisons and also find possible way of getting them to freedom?
Yeah, because of our system, I remember when we approached the correctional center, the prison, one of the things we wanted to see how we can assist those who cannot afford the cost of justice. But of course, the system suggested that, since you have empowerment program, why don't you just provide employment program? From there, you can see. Then we went further. Of course, we were able to interact with some of those people. We found out that there are people who are waiting trials. There are people who are there for just trump up charges. We are collecting their data and we are trying to take adequate steps to see what we can do to render legal services and possibly do something significant within the ambit of the law to see how we can assist.
Dovetailing from your last point, you did talk about those awaiting trials. Now, the cases or the issues of people awaiting trials in different prisons across Nigeria has become an epidemic. Now, for how long, or has there been like some sort of separation between the correctional centers and the judiciary? Because we believe that they ought to work hand in hand to ensure that judiciary and justice is served in every situation. But when we have litany of cases of people awaiting trial, some spanning over 3 decades, one wonders where the judiciary and then the other arm of correction is headed.
Well, you see, this matter is so broad. The responsibility of the judiciary is to analyze the issue and pass judgments, right? One of the challenges that I personally have with the judiciary has to do with adequate collection of these data, facts, and passing judgment at the right time. Because I'm very much concerned about justice delay in Nigeria. Personally, I'm very much concerned. And most time, they will tell you it is also the lawyers or maybe the prosecutors who fail to provide necessary information or facts to prove their case. But the major challenge is not really about that. You cannot just keep people in detention when the prosecutors could not make their case before the courts. And this issue must be addressed properly. And it must come with judicial reform, giving timeline, just like you have the electoral matters that has timeline to which you must present your matter. The matters must be considered based on time. Because you go to these correctional centers, you find people who are 6 years awaiting trials, 5 years awaiting trials. Now, awaiting trials simply means that this person is not convicted, but is already suffering. We are not saying that such a person or suspects never committed a crime in the first place. But the justice must be seen to be done at all time. Judiciary is, the courtroom is different from...
Before we delve further, I would like to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt anyway. When we talk about those awaiting trial, you have also mentioned here that the fact that they are in prison suffering already does not mean they've been convicted. And then I'm curious to find out, why is it mandatory that people who have not been convicted are already behind bars? Are there no other modalities that should be put up to ensure that people who are seeking justice, or people who are charged with something, one thing or the other, go through the process before eventually going behind bars?
Most time, it depends on the offense which the accused have been charged with. If it depends on if it's a minor offense, such an accused may be granted bail. But if the offense is a major offense, of course, and depending on if the offender is a first-time offender or an offender that has been accused or be convicted before, or so many other circumstances will determine if the court will grant such a bail. But then, in most cases, it depends on the nature of the issue And depending on the nature of the accused, like I mentioned to you, some persons do not have the financial requirement to pursue their case or to defend themselves. So when you are charged to court or you are accused of committing a certain crime, even though you committed a crime, you are entitled to legal representation. And our judicial system operates on the basis of following the rules. So you must follow the rules.
So apparently, the judiciary is, according to the rule of law, expected to be independent of every other arm of government.
Absolutely.
Given the situation in Nigeria, can you, as a legal practitioner, say wholeheartedly that the Nigerian judicial system is independent of the executive and the legislative?
Well, by constitution, it is independent. I would say it is independent because they have the constitution has already made them independent, made the judiciary independent. So it now depends on if you are meant to be independent and you decide to be subservient to another authority, then that becomes a problem. I will give you an example. The question, we know there are political cases where government officials are interested, particularly the authority, they are interested in such a matter. They can decide to keep people in detention irrespective of court judgments or court orders, just like you have the case of Nnamdi Kanu. There have been orders of courts that given directive that he should be released, for instance. But the authority already have a mindset about what they believe and what they should do. So the judiciary will not dance or go into the arena or go to the cell and open the cell door for the suspects.
So do you not consider that an abuse of the judiciary? Because when court orders are not followed to the latter, then it just shows that the democracy in the country is not also improving, isn't it?
Absolutely. There is something fundamentally wrong with our judicial system. And that is why the justice system of LJE tends to advocate for some of these issues. We are looking for solution. And we have found a solution. It's about implementing the solutions. Because the problem lies on the ability to do the right thing at all times. The judiciary themselves, apart from being whether independent or not independent, they also have their own lacuna in the procedure or the manner which they conduct their own activities. Like I said, even though it's an arm of government that operates on rules and principles, in the sense that when you are filing up your matter, there are certain steps, there are certain procedures you must follow to the letter. Otherwise, you will be knocked out by reason of technicality. But technicality should not supersede what appears to be the fact of the case. When someone or an accused person is charged to court and the prosecutor could not prove their case, and such a person is remanded to prison, what do you do? And if you're unable to get access to lawyers, or you're unable to pay lawyers to assist you to prove your innocence, then you might end up just languishing in prison. And that is why we are saying that, look, the judiciary must be reformed for optimal performance. We must reform the judiciary so that people will have confidence in judiciary. A judiciary that tends to prolong issue for many years in just one single trial cannot work in this country.
Well, we'll go on a short break, and when we return, we will talk about the litany of cases in the judiciary vis-a-vis, will I call it repetitive judgments, or judgment of from the same jurisdiction, clashing here and there. So we'll talk about that when we return from this break. This day.
Hi guys! So I came across a studio here in Abuja where you can just walk in and shoot any video of your choice. Podcast sessions, talk shows, and even live programs. They have beautiful colored lights. You can choose the one you want. They have teleprompter in case you want to read from a script. You can bring in your guests or someone you would love to talk to. You can do football gist, celebrity gossip, cooking show, music countdown, political gist, real estate palaver. Just that dream show you would love to do. Guess what? When I came in, they even made smile touch-ups on my face. Within 1 hour of my shoots, my video was ready. They have different bonanza packages starting from as low as 10,000 and above. You can get your video instantly or in less than 24 hours. Please check their contacts and address on the screen. Hi there.
When they ask me difficult question, Abi,
In a bid to tackle the growing security challenges faced by farmers across Nigeria, the Leadership Hub Justice and Economic Advancement, LJE Nigeria, paid a strategic visit to the Delta State Commissioner for Agriculture. The visit aimed to discuss the impact of insecurity on agriculture and national food security and to seek collaborative solutions with the State Ministry of Agriculture.
Sir, the group name is Leadership of Justice and Economic Advancement. So the Honourable Commissioner may want to know why you are here.
thank you very much, Commissioner. Precisely, we understand the importance of this industry. And if you have been seeing some notice about campaign going on around the country, Operation Free the Bush in Nigeria, the LJE Nigeria is championing the Operation Free the Bush. Behind the Operation Free the Bush, we are also campaigning Operation Restrict the Movement of Cattle in Nigeria. The Leadership of Justice and Economic Advancement is a leadership advocacy organization. We are into justice, we are into leadership advocacy and economic advancement for training young people within the country and outside the country. Precisely why we are here, sir. There is a growing problem in this country. And just on Tuesday here, we were invited by the Inspector General of Police to come and give account about what we are advocating for operation restriction of movement of cattle. We tend to be very careful not to itemize it as cattle Fulani herdsmen. No, we refer them to cattle rearers. In presentation to Benin State and of
Hi, good to know you're still there. Remember that you can always be part of this conversation. All you need to do is join us live. We are handle still remains at LJE Nigeria on Facebook, Instagram, and what LJE stands LJE stands when it comes to judiciary in Nigeria. Well, my guest is still here in the studio, and before we went on that break, you were a legal system. And then I would ask this question just as we wrap up that part of the conversation. There is a tsunami in the judiciary. Now, the tsunami is centered on multiple judgments coming from courts of equal jurisdiction. I know sometime in 2024, the Attorney General actually issued a communique or a statement or warning, asking judges to refrain from giving judgment of similarities, especially when it's coming from court of equal jurisdiction.
conflicting judgments.
Conflicting judgment, absolutely. But it appears that has not been strictly adhered to. How can this issue be resolved?
And that is why I said the judicial reform can cure all of these things. Because when people do things without consequences, they will see it as a norm. So when you have a judge who gives conflicting judgments with another court with coordinate jurisdiction, and nothing happened, there's no sanction. But I know for sure that of recent, the body is honestly looking into some of these issues. But then judicial reform would indeed take care of some of these issues and ensure that judicial office holders have complete independence and at the same time should be able to be rational in their decision. But sometimes some of these applicants or the parties go to courts and they get judgments from a particular court, unknown to the court, that there has already an existing judgment or a court order from another court with coordinate jurisdiction. So it is the responsibility of the parties to draw the attention of the courts to get these things resolved. Or in most cases, you also go to the appellate courts. But generally, the bottom line has to do with letting people bear the consequences of their action.
Now, quite significant also is the whole furore, or perhaps the whole question surrounding LJE stance and justice. Now, a part of the LJE talks about justice, but not a few persons would want to know the objective of LJE when it comes to judicial reform, justice seeking in Nigeria, and the list goes on.
Well, there are a couple of them that I may not just want to say right now, but we as an organization, we projected how a justice system should be in this country. And I don't know if you've been to some of our courts, particularly the magistrate courts or the lower courts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you go to some of these courts, you would, in fact, some of those courts looks like even pottery. It's better than some of these courts. No chairs, nothing, no facilities. And there are court sittings that goes on in those courts. And nothing really much. But for us, we want a judicial system that works for the people. A judicial system that can hold people and government accountable. A judicial system that can be fair. A judicial system that can be seen to be transparent. A judicial system that can be proactive. A judicial system that can deliver judgment in real time. Not a judicial system that should be balkanized by politicians. But for us in LJE, we believe that justice is a cardinal of every democratic system. So the Justice Department of LJE, for us, beyond the issue of judicial reform, we also recognize that many people cannot afford the cost of justice, like I keep mentioning. So it is our responsibility as an organization, as a responsibility of every other citizen of this country, to draw the attention to the highest authority about what is going on, so that there will be sanity in the system. So what we do when we get some of these complaints, I've seen people who are arrested for just minor things, and we'll come in, they say, okay, you've gone to call them, okay, all right, go. So imagine if you are unable to speak up. Imagine if you don't have who to call. So justice does not really lie in courts. Justice is about how you treat other people, whether you are treating them fairly or you are treating them with intention to intimidate them. Intimidation is injustice. Harassment is injustice. Unfortunately, Nigerians get more harassment and intimidation from those who has a responsibility to protect them. So those are the people we open our arms to receive such people who are victims of circumstances.
And victims of the society.
Victims of the society, victims of kidnapping, victim of whatsoever. When you bring such a case, we tend to assist the enforcement agencies to see how we can get to the root of such issues.
Well, it does seem that your organization is doing a lot as far as justice improvement in the country is concerned. However, I would like to find out from you also the synergy your organization has with the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, for instance, the Office of the CJN, and also the NJC. What's the collaboration?
Yeah, we have a collaboration with some states, offices of the the attorney generals of the states. But for the attorney general of the federation, I think we've written a letter to the attorney general. We've not gotten a response, but we don't even need so much of this. It is necessary to work with them, but the situation where you tend to work with certain people for whatever reason, if you do not get a response, you can't back out. You will do what you have to do. So the organization was not established to align with certain people and all that. If you have, we have over 200 million Nigerians, and you have institutions. AJE is also an institution. So we must do what we have to do as an organization to the best of our ability. But we are very much open to the relevant authority. We are very much open. Of course, we are working very closely with the Nigerian Police Force. We are assisting in providing information. We are assisting in providing all necessary information and the support they need to carry out their responsibility. So that we are doing a lot. But for judiciary, is an independent body which tends not to really affiliate with private sectors. But at the same time, when there are issues, we'll test the waters.
Waters, absolutely. But before we round off this conversation, a lot of people in Nigeria have this mindset that getting justice in Nigeria is like passing through the eye of a needle. Now, I'd like you to address that, coming from the standpoint that when cases are taken to courts these days, the hearing time, it's difficult to get a hearing date. You know, it is difficult for judgments from those cases to come up. In fact, there are cases of people who have approached the appellate courts, for instance, and for more than a year, more than 2 years, their cases have not been called upon.
Yeah, I quite agree with you that, and that's from the beginning of this program, we have actually identified some of these lacunas in the area of delay, and I've said that justice delay is justice denied, because in other clans, if you look at the judiciary is at the heart of justice in Nigeria, in every system. Unfortunately, people are discouraged from accessing the judicial system of Nigeria. And that is why I said judicial reform is fundamental, is non-negotiable. And judicial reform we are talking about has to do with the issue of delay in justice. Delay in justice can affect so many things, can discourage people from approaching the judiciary, and it also weakens institutions. It weakens the mindset, it weakens the confidence people have for the government and for the system. So this area really needs an urgent intervention by all critical stakeholders, particularly the judiciary themselves. I most time when you listen to the validatory session by the past, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, even the last one, he said that he even mentioned about the judicial, the justice delay and the rest of them. And you begin to ask yourself, this is somebody who was the Chief Justice of the nation. So he had the opportunity to direct the paths and probably influence how things should be done. So we shouldn't be talking about the problems, the challenges. Let us begin to look at the solution. And not just looking at the solution, but ensure that these solutions get through and eventually becomes a norm that we should see as a way to go.
Could you give us a pointer to what the solution to the judicial decay in Nigeria, what it should be?
Beyond social orientation, like I always clamor for, one way for us to go, indeed, has to do with the judicial reform itself. Because there are so many beautiful...
What aspects of the judiciary are you seeking for a reform?
Well, when it comes to the justice system, because justice system is holistic.
Absolutely.
The judiciary is just one part of the justice system. A judiciary is the courtroom and the decisions from the courtroom. But the justice system encompasses both the character of the people, the law enforcement agencies, and the harassment and the rest of them. When people are arrested for whatsoever, people who go out to carry out peaceful protests, and they are arrested, people who speak up because they just want to voice their opinion about happenings around the country, they are arrested. When people are maybe make one or two comments or criticize the government, they are beaten up. These are all injustice. They all fall within the justice system.
And you believe the current administration has done nothing to
Well,
address this?
I cannot say that they have done nothing, because when we talk about the current administration, administration as a government administration goes beyond, it's all encompassive. Again, the character and the activities of the various law enforcement agencies, whether you are talking about customs, whether you are talking about the police, whether you are talking about the NSCDC, whether you are talking about different aspects of instrumentality of government that carried out this responsibility and using institutional power to oppress the people, even when people are arrested wrongfully, they still want to collect money from them before they can regain their freedom. All of these things happen without the consent of the judiciary, but they still fall within the justice system. But I believe that the leadership of the country, and when we talk about leadership of the country, a firm leader must give a directive on how things should be and give a clear direction. It is the responsibility, the head of the police is the Inspector General of Police. The head of government is the president of the country. You also have the component governors and the rest. So everybody must sit down together or individually at their various corners to ensure that justice is seen to be done at all times. We have also witnessed cases where divisional police arrest people or tend to intimidate people, or have retrieved monies from some of these guys through the same procedures, through their higher hierarchies. So you see a police officer on the road intimidate people, compel them to transfer money to a POS, and they get this money, and such a person, after regaining his freedom, goes somewhere like LJE or any other place to report. Then you contact a hierarchy in the same police system, and they get the money back. So you see that the institutional correcting institution. But what we must begin to see done is that the people who are officials of law enforcement agencies must begin to be up and doing to ensure that the right things are done at every given time.
Just outside seeking justice reform, LJE is also seeking institutional reforms.
Institutional reform, and sometimes I must tell you, sometimes you want things to be done by way of dialogue. And I've seen cases where somebody is.
The mediation system is part of the the judiciary, of the justice sector of Nigeria, isn't it?
Of course, definitely. Definitely, the mediation system is part of it. Mediation, whether in the area of the civil, or you cannot mediate in the area of criminal trial if it is a criminal. That one must be settled by the states.
The states.
Yeah, but sometimes you will see the manner through which people are harassed in this country. Sometimes police will tell you, we know this is it, but we can do it this way. And they will open up and tell you
Corruption.
that is corruption because they want to extort money from you. And I know the hierarchy of the system are not in support of some of these things. So what we do within the Justice Department of the organization is that when we get reports of this
If the real issues are not tackled head on. Now, take for instance, on the same platform you have talked about reorientation of young Nigerians, and so you have also spoke about a number of things, but then there are some people who say even when you reorientate people, and then the salary, the welfare of this institution does not improve over time, we fall back to corruption. So when we talk about reform, reorientation, and some sort of liberty, should we not also be calling on the government to see that the welfare of most of these institutions, from the military to the paramilitary to power state house, are also improved drastically?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And unfortunately, you see, it's still all about inflation, because the current system keep devaluing our naira. Because if you want to look at it from the standpoint of some people, and I don't know the salaries of police, but I've seen them talk about it. Then, along with other, it's just a system thing. But you cannot predicate corrupt activities based on your earning, or simply because what you are earning is not enough for you. So therefore, you take to the streets to intimidate people, oppress people, and extort.
That's not an excuse.
That is not an excuse. So the person you are extorting from, is he better than you? What is the salary? We have seen young people who even go to borrow money just because, not as if. In fact, if you look at some of the transaction that goes on in these law enforcement agencies' offices, you weep. And the question now is, so let's even assume that there is an allegation of crime committed by people who are being invited or who are arrested, and you made them to pay a huge amount of money. Does that not make them to be innocent? No. So what we are saying is,
it all just brings us to this conclusion that in justice system, ignorance is not an excuse.
ignorance is not an excuse. So the fact that your salary is 80,000 naira as an officer, and so
It's
because
not
I have
enough
so
for
much
you to
responsibility,
intimidate or go on streets
and
and gag the citizens.
the same
of
way,
the
the same
country.
way you will arrest someone who had gone to steal a car or steal something, and the person say, "Oh, please forgive me because I don't have money to eat," and are you going to allow him to go?
And
No.
under the law, also, no one is above the law.
No one is above
of
the law.
the land. Well, we must sincerely thank you for your time with us. The conversation would have gone on, but we're fast out of time. So I'm sure that in our next conversation we would also touch on some other jamming issues, and some of the things that LJE is also doing. But for now, we must go. Well, it's been an eventful conversation, and we must sincerely thank you, our viewers, for being part of this conversation. Remember that even when the podcast is over, it still continues on our social media handles or platforms on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, as well as Facebook. The handle still remains at LJE Nigeria. Drop your comments, get your reactions, share, like, and spread out spread out the points we have made on this platform, and let people know that justice in Nigeria is obtainable and attainable even in our terrain. And of course, justice can never be denied anyone who truly seeks justice. Well, I must thank you for your time with us, Barrister Samuel Meme. Always a pleasure having you, Barrister Samuel Meme is the president of the Leadership Hub Justice and Economic Advancement Organization in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on this podcast. I am Chigodinaka Dili. The conversation continues again. Well, bye for now.